Minister for Indigenous Australians Ken Wyatt says an Indigenous voice to Parliament will not be part of a question put to the Australian people on constitutional recognition. Matt Cunningham spoke with the Minister exclusively in Darwin.
Minister, thanks for your time. Why won't a voice to Parliament be put to the Australian people as part of a question on constitutional recognition?
Well, there's two elements, as I said tonight, constitutional recognition and the voice. At this point of time, we're not looking at enshrining it in the Constitution, but we are looking at how it's enshrined so the voice is listened to by relevant ministers and the Parliament. Now, what form that takes, because it was never defined, and there will be work done with our people across this nation and with Australians. So I'm just keeping those two as very succinct strands that are absolutely critical and important, but on top of that is also truth-telling, and we're looking at how we do that. Just on truth-telling, the Uluru Statement from the Heart talks about a Makarrata Commission, but it seems that you're ruling that out as well. No, I haven't ruled that out at all, Matt. A commission of some description will exist, and certainly I like the terminology around Makarrata. It's about, and I've asked Dr Yunupingu to send me some words that best describes what Makarrata means, but I want permission from him to use their word to describe what it is and what the process is. Because if it means that we're bringing together two disparate groups, and I use that in quotation marks because that's how they deal with it. So when two families are disputing, then they're brought together, they reach through discussion a position in which they both agree, and then they shake hands and commit to working together for a better outcome. What I did roll out, Matt, was a truth-telling commission like the South African one. We don't need that. There are ways in which the truth is told.
But I assume that won't be included either in a question that's put to the Australian people on constitutional recognition.
Well, we don't know, because there will be the co-design process will occur, and we will have those discussions. So we have to talk about all the options.
Right. But as far as the voice goes, you think that we're going to go to a referendum, put a question in this term to the Australian people, but the voice will definitely not be part of that?
No, the Prime Minister has ruled out the voice in the Constitution. I'm not going to disagree with my leader. There are other options that we can consider. But what's more important is having recognition in the Constitution. It doesn't diminish those who yearn for sovereignty. They can still have those debates. But already, as I said tonight, Section 127 was about discounting the natives from the census. And Section 5126 is used when legislation is enacted for which the Commonwealth has responsibility, and it's implicit in those decisions that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the reference point to that particular element of the Constitution.
You spoke in your speech about local voices. When it comes to a voice to Parliament, do you think that those local voices are actually being heard?
They do know that their voices need to be heard by their local members. That was evident at Garma. But also when I've been into the Pilbara or into the Kimberley, people say, can you get somebody to listen to what we want? They appreciate the role of peak organisations, and nobody disputes the importance of their role. But they also want their matters locally dealt with, the more pragmatic things such as getting people access to cataract surgery, dealing with otitis media, dealing with dialysis needs on country. When I came to Alice Springs, I listened to what the elders said, and I went back and advocated, and we were able to provide them funding to expand the role of Purple House so that more people in country could have access to dialysis.
You talked about how when you're judged in your role as Minister, those issues are just as important as constitutional recognition. You also talked about the Canberra bubble and the media. Do you think that the media puts too much emphasis on issues like a voice to Parliament and constitutional recognition, perhaps at the expense of some of those other issues?
History shows us that has occurred. The Canberra bubble terminology was probably most apt in that period in which the Prime Minister coined that phrase. Because sometimes we can be far removed from the challenges that a community faces on the ground. Water, quality of water, access to primary health care. Those are the things that are critical. And as Minister, when I get out and I see those, I'm able to then take on the challenge and then work with my colleagues to effect change, as did my predecessor, Nigel Scullion, because it is by being out, listening and seeing that you're able to act on those. And tonight, people were raising issues with me, which was great, and I'll take up on those matters.
When you're out listening and seeing, what are the issues that people raise with you?
It varies depending on the community, but land issues are strong in terms of resolving some matters under the native title process, the Indigenous land use agreements, the need for housing, the need for better infrastructure, the importance of their kids going to school, because I don't know of a single parent who doesn't want their kid to succeed at school, primary health care. So it'll vary according to where the location of that community is, and it's simple as access to fuel on a regular basis.
Do you think that there's a need for land tenure reform here in the Northern Territory?
Look, I'm going to work with the land councils in the near future. I promised them I'd come back and spend half a day with them, or even a day, to look at the range of matters they wish to discuss. But that will also include the Northern Territory government in those discussions at some point.
There's an issue at the moment here in the Northern Territory with the NT Cattlemen's Association concerned about native title holders being given the right of veto over diversification on pastoral land. Is that something that the federal government needs to take a look at?
Well, that's part of the discussion I want to have with the CLCs, the Central Land Council, and certainly all of the Northern Territory land councils. It is about optimising the use of a rich asset and the town settlement program is part of this whole mix of discussion we need to have. We have to also respect the right of communities who own land, like we do with pastoralists. We respect their right to have tenure on that land to develop their businesses. But I'm also looking at the economic opportunities that could prevail, where there is Aboriginal land that could be used for pastoral purposes. I'm advised that the sale of beef to China will continue to rise, and demand for our beef will be sought after by other countries. So there's an incredible economic opportunity there.
Do you think that's being stifled at all by the system as it exists at the moment?
I don't know whether it's a system or whether it's a mindset or whether it's the will. I'm not talking just community here. I'm talking about a whole number of people who are involved in discussions, including the tiers of government, and that's critical that we look at those.
Minister, thanks so much for your time.
No, it's really good to be here, Matt.